Batman Brave and the Bold, that new writer, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm sure everybody's feeling the same way. Like they're not excited. There's not excitement here. There's not excitement here. Gunn comments on about timing with Batman 2 and his Batman is uncertainty. It's not about timing. The Mariner Tomorrow updates. Forgot what we talked about.
Maxima, like just sort of, if that's true.
See how easily we forget? You see how easily we forget Maxima? What up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerd Jet Report. I'm your host, Pablo, and joining me as always is Mr. Brian Schultz. DC. I had hoped for one day that DC would overcome the negative perspective that I think majority of people had towards their output in terms of movies and stuff like that. But we're still kind of in the same place of not as excited as I thought I should be for DC stuff. I think that's where I'm at. There has been some talk regarding Batman, and you know when people start talking about Batman, that is the news of the month. And we're not like, I don't know what to say. Well, I know what to say, but I'm going to try to keep calm about it and not go crazy. Gunn comments about timing versus Batman 2. Man of Tomorrow. We got some Man of Tomorrow updates. Supergirl. Oh, Lobo. Like it's turning into the Lobo film. Imagine that we got a trailer and it was about Jim Gordon and not Batman. Someone has, I guess, been pushing this idea of Supergirl is not getting the juices going for everybody, so we got to throw something else at them to get them excited. And what's really going on with Zack Snyder? I have my thoughts about that, and we'll get into that. But let's get into Batman, Brave and the Bold, and the new writer that they have chosen, Brian. Who is this person? What have they done? And where are we at right now?
We're kind of nowhere on the project, I would say, right? It feels like this is getting further and further off, but this writer news, I think, has drawn some strong reactions. And I think we want to break it down from the standpoint of not so much trying to go after the person involved, but just kind of why does this person keep coming up in the genre? Because that, I think, is one of the more interesting subplots here, and I'll explain why. So Christina Hodson, confirmed by a number of press outlets, this is not a rumor, that she has been brought in to write the script for The Brave and the Bold. And that's a name that I think almost everyone in this genre will probably be familiar with. She was the writer most recently on The Flash. So there's the Andy Muschietti connection. She was the writer of Birds of Prey, kind of the Harley Quinn-led movie that came and went. She was the writer on Bumblebee, Travis Knight adaptation of Transformers-verse. She was also the writer of the canceled Batgirl movie, and also reportedly wrote a script for Batman Beyond that was submitted to the studio but was never made. So this is someone who's been involved with DC, been involved with IP for a number of years and a number of projects. I would say the reaction to her involvement has been largely concern to panic. I know what your initial reaction, well, you could choose to share it if you want. I know what your initial reaction was when you saw the headline. I mean, take it from here. Christina Hodson, as the current, let's stress current, because projects like this we know might go through other iterations, so there might be other writers involved before this is all said and done. But her being announced as the writer of the script of the DCU Batman film, Brave and the Bold, what is your reaction to that?
I just listened to the names. When I first did not know who this person was until I read the names of the films that she wrote. Birds of Prey, a Batman Beyond that didn't see, I guess, the light of day. Speaking of not being seen a light of day, Batgirl, they didn't even get canceled. They got destroyed. Flash. All of them have one common denominator. Correct me if I'm wrong. They all failed. And now we hear the name of a person that's going to be attached to Batman. Because all we expect from Batman is epicness and dopeness. That's what we expect. When we get goofiness, for the most part, I'm out. And that's okay. I'll be willing to see another attempt at Batman if it's done right. That's how powerful that character is and the potential that it has to bring in business. But you put someone in charge to write something that needs to be, I mean, you got Chris Nolan to do this. Obviously, we know the history there, but he did it because he was interested. And now we got somebody who's written failures at each turn. Makes me question why?
So you have to unpack, I think. I think I would agree, right? If you go through just if we measure commercial success of these projects, only Bumblebee would have fallen into the category of both got decent reviews and made some degree of money, although it was not like a mega hit.
Yeah. And but one of the best Transformers, and I don't think it had anything to do perhaps with her writing, but yet the director, the guy in charge of making us of creating what we saw in theaters.
Sure, but you can't take away all the credit from her. I mean, she is the writer on that movie. You get that.
Yeah.
You get that, but you get those points somewhere on your resume that you were part of that. But my point is, I think it's interesting that what there isn't on her resume is there is no mega hit. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. It's like, I think if we look at the careers of almost every writer, you'll see highs and lows, right? Not everyone hits it every single time out. But usually what you're looking for in this situation is I think you're looking for people who at least have shown the ceiling is high. Like when they're on, when they've got it, they're able to deliver something that critics and audiences have responded to.
Yeah.
And her body of work would say that kind of has not been the case.
But that's what I'm saying. Is like, if I didn't know her and she did Bumblebee, let's say she wrote Bumblebee and she hadn't done anything else, there would be hope there. But because she's affiliated with writing these other things that didn't go anywhere, that didn't even see the light of day, and for the ones that did, people didn't like it.
I think that's the thing, right? So like Birds of Prey, if you look at the critics' scores, they were decent. But I mean, this thing was completely shunned by audiences. It was a disaster commercially. I think if we're being honest about The Flash, The Flash had a lot of things working against it. Mm-hmm. But I would not classify story as a high point of that movie, right? If it was just isolating her contribution as the story part, forget the effects, forget the Ezra Miller part of it. I don't think the story is amazing as an adaptation of Flashpoint.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can give her a pass for that either. You could say she's not the only reason why that movie didn't work, but I certainly didn't walk out of there being like, wow, that was brilliant writing that was ruined by bad PR or, whatever. And then look, I mean, we'll never see Batgirl, but
it's the affiliation, man. It's the affiliation, the common
denominator. But what we've been told
almost,
is that it was horrible, that it was unwatchable, that it was not cinematic at all. And honestly, the little sizzle, the thing they tried to leak to the press, to the public to get you excited looked pretty bad. Now, granted, that's not really writing, that's just choreography. But so you're associated with a project that completely failed and then was deemed so bad that the studio would rather take a tax write-off on it than show it to an audience. And it's like, I think it's funny that people are like, well, the script for Batman Beyond was cool, but it was never made. And I'm kind of like, if it was that cool, it would have been made.
Oh, you got
You know what I'm
listen.
saying? Like,
When we see successes like Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse, you look to ride the wave. Look what happens in the stock market when one thing everybody's looking for the derivative of that and the possibilities of that. But you guys didn't even make the attempt for doing a Batman Beyond. Perhaps I don't know for what reason why you wouldn't do it, because I think that's something a lot of people are interested in seeing. So it's hard to imagine why they said no.
but and like we just got done with the Kathleen Kennedy piece where she's telling us there's a great script from Mangold and Williman, and the studio said no. So this does happen, but like my point is, this is definitely not the kind of news that is going to inspire confidence. It is the kind of thing where it's like, it's someone clearly who's a good collaborator on the DC side because they keep going back to her. So she must be easy to work with. And there must be some internal force, whether it's Muschietti, Gunn, or both, who likes what she writes or how she writes. But so far, we haven't seen that audiences like what she writes, by and large.
Yeah.
And that's a problem when you're talking about Batman. Like, if we get through this, and when we get through the show, there's an emerging theme here around this DCU and the state of it right now, which is frustrating, which is okay. Like, if you ask me, how's the DCU? What's the state of the DCU? I think that what I would tell you is it's okay. But okay is not what we're aiming for here.
Yeah.
Like, and I'll keep coming back to it. Like, Superman to me, like, it's fine. It's not bad, but it's not going to be 50 years from now. I don't think you're going to be talking about it. The box office, break even, okay. Not amazing, not terrible. Like, Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, like, it's like, okay. Like, it's just, that's what I mean. Like, we're waiting for the homer. We're waiting for the first thing where you're like, wow, we've leveled up into something that only Marvel has really touched, in the last 20 years. And I just wonder how long okay is enough, and so I feel like with Christina Hodson, I look at that resume and I'm like, is she a total failure? No, but like, because you got that Bumblebee thing on there, but it's like, where is her Top Gun Maverick? Like, where is her, I see a lot of like not so good to okay. And I'm like, that feels actually in keeping with the DCU right now, which is
if you
not
had a
awesome.
list of candidates, she would be the one that you sort of you look at it, you skim through it, you see the names and you're like, nah. You don't put that in the pile of potentials to take over this, to write this. You know what I'm saying? That's
Well, she kind of feels like who the Cleveland Browns would hire as their coach now, because no one will take the job. Like, it's like someone who's got experience and is familiar with the work, but like, I don't know that I would trust her to give me the kind of Batman that I want to deliver.
No, it's not even up for discussion with anybody. I'd be like, yo, what are we talking about here? What are the other names? I mean, does Batman fall under this situation where, I don't know, do people want to throw their names? Like, who wouldn't want to work on Batman is what I'm saying. That her name is the one that popped up. We haven't heard anyone else, really, have we?
No, it's just Muschietti himself, right? Which we continue to speculate that he won't ultimately direct. And actually, this story of Hodson writing has also come with the mention of it's looking less certain that Muschietti will direct. And they're saying, well, it's because his schedule's busy and he's doing the It TV series. Now he's into, let me tell you something, that's code for very gently ushering him to the side and saying, you can save face, but you're not going to direct this. And I go back to
Good job, PR.
Right. And so I go back to, like, if we think about David Zaslav's 4 pillars, there's a reason why James Gunn himself took over Superman. James Gunn does have the mega hit on his he has a mega hit trilogy on his resume. Whatever else you think of him, that guy can walk in a room and say, I made Guardians of the Galaxy a $2.5 billion trilogy for Marvel. I script doctored every great movie Marvel ever made. You can't take that from the guy, no matter what else you think of him. So when you say, okay, James Gunn, I'm going to trust you to write and direct the very first DCU movie, that makes sense to me. Like, I get it. Those are his hands, right? So for Batman, you would feel like, don't you want, if James Gunn himself is not going to do it, and I'm still wondering if he ultimately will, don't you want someone who has a similar level of oomph in the room in charge of Batman? And they don't have that right now.
That's why this choice is so weird, man. That's why this choice is so weird.
Like right now, you have the creative team behind The Flash, literally, Muschietti and Hodson, a movie that we were told was going to be it. At one point, people were saying it was going to make $150 million as opening weekend in the U.S. and then barely made that total. It was not the worst movie ever made, but was certainly very forgettable. It was certainly just come and go forgettable.
Yeah, it wasn't the worst, but still, it wasn't what the hype was.
No.
Being, you know what I'm saying?
Not what James Gunn told us it was going to be.
And what did he say?
One of the best movies in the history of the genre.
Don't trust them. Shame on them!
So all we can do is wait and see how this develops.
Yeah. And we are going to wait, by the way, because it's funny how the world turns. Because remember, it felt like there was this moment where there was almost a race of the Batman projects. It would appear that Matt Reeves has won this decisively. His ground has been staked, and despite him delaying and taking forever, his movie is the one that's going to come out in 2027. And now, listen to this language around this that has changed, where they say, James Gunn from the man himself, talking about DCU Batman and when it would come out. Oh, because remember, there was a report it was going to come out in the summer of 28. So 6 months after Batman Part 2. And Gunn went on socials to be like, no, not happening. And then said, I'm dependent on when there's an actionable script ready. There's no way of me guessing this. And frankly, we're well into the Batman Part 2, and I wouldn't want to cloud the bat sphere until well after that, end quote.
Well after. That's if we're already in line for a Batman 3, depending on what Batman 2 does, right? If Batman 2 is grand, which we expect it to be, then priority still goes to him and not wanting to, do whatever James Gunn said.
Well, also, this is where you can also insert, by the time we get there, WB is going to have a new owner. And that new owner is not going to have any history of they're just going to look at, what's that? Batman Part 2 made us $1.2 billion? Hell yes, we're going to do Batman Part 3. And then James Gunn actually said further, quote, I'm also not going to have 2 Batman movies come out in the same year, end quote. So yeah, like he's clearing out for the Reeves verse and saying like, I don't want to risk, and like, I get it. Like I actually would agree with that. But I think it's a little bit of a pivot from where we were. It feels like Reeves' footing has solidified here. Maybe the deal with WB is helping that, because like that uncertainty clearly doesn't help James Gunn, and the DCU is probably more beneficial to projects that are already underway.
Yeah.
But it very much feels to me like Brave and the Bold is a ways off here.
I just think that the uncertainty of the WB and who's going to be in charge and things of that nature, and plus people betting on the sure thing here. There's no real debate. Like if I'm Matt Reeves and they're asking me about Batman and it's all about what do you want to do? Right? And James Gunn seeing this And in the midst of this uncertainty, he is really unable to give a clear answer, because if you ask me, Batman is a priority in this new DCU. For that not to be ready, I'm sorry. You already had your ideas, Batman Brave and the Bold, young Damian Wayne. You gonna tell me as fast as you write, you couldn't do this?
And he
Because you
said
want to direct.
and he said at one point in February of 2025, the story's quote coming along really well, meaning for Brave and the Bold. It's a year ago.
So coming along really well. I'm sorry, Batman is a priority if you already started writing it. Not you per se, but the script going well, meaning
the room. The room is
yes.
working on it. We know what we
Correct.
know what we want to say. That according to him, that's where we were a year ago.
Don't tell me you don't have a script. If I'm Zaslav and I wanted Batman, don't tell me a script is not ready. But the script is not ready is because we got the other behemoth sitting in the wing. That's almost a guarantee.
But
right?
see, that's what I mean. Like when he was saying, "Oh, the story's coming along really well," and he's announcing Gods and Monsters, and they got this plan. Remember, like at the time, Reeves was frustrating everyone, including us, because he wasn't delivering his story. Right? We kept hearing, "Oh, he's almost done. He's almost done. He's almost done." There's all, and then do you notice how, like, when the script finally got turned in, and we joked, James Gunn was like, "It's okay," and then everyone else that read it started saying something else about it. All of a sudden, the narrative started to pivot to Batman Part 2 is it. And Brave and the Bold started to again move to the back burner. And like I said, I do think the merger has something to do with that. But like, it's very clear now that like Batman coming out of Warner Brothers for the time being is Matt Reeves' character still.
I'll say it again, as I've said it before. Having Batman on screen or two movies out doesn't have to be on this at the same time, the same year. I don't see that not happening. Why? There's possibilities. You know how many different iterations of Batman we've gotten, yo?
Yeah. Batman and Spider-Man are the two characters you can do this with.
So don't tell me this, that, and one of the comments that he made that drove me crazy is that in regards to the Batman stories that they've been done before, and he says something to that effect. We've done all of these already. We've done Batman already in this thing.
It's not true.
That's a crazy statement, That's a statement that makes me question your ability to really do this. He said recently that the DCU currently, as it is going now, is not sustainable. Is that correct? Did you read
What's
that?
not sustainable?
The DCU and the machine that is the DCU currently.
Well, this goes to my point about okay. Yeah, the short answer is yes. You can't live in okay for a decade. You can have okay if you have some great, but we'll get into it in the Supergirl discussion too. It's like, okay is not good enough for this.
James Gunn, I believe in his excitement, did not understand the job of what he was, I think, hired to do. He should have just overseen. He should have been a Kevin Feige, which he says he didn't want to. But you can't be a director and a guy running the thing at the same time.
Well, and there's the one last point about the Batman and the Brave and the Bold, and it's not a surprise, but they said one thing that came out of these stories, and you can find it, is there's a real concern on the part of James Gunn and WB that like they're trying to find the right tone that is very distinct from the Matt Reeves Batman. Now, James Gunn has said, I don't want campy, right? So he said, I don't want campy. Matt Reeves has obviously staked his claim on really gritty, like really real. I think audiences would probably, I think you have to also throw in there, you can't just recycle the Nolan tone, which would be real, but maybe not quite as dark and gritty as Reeves went, right? So you kind of say like that lane is also closed. We know James Gunn with his humor, right? So you kind of say like, you can kind of see where he wants to live with this character, but they haven't really figured that out. And it remains to be seen if that's where audiences want to live with this character. And I probably would even throw in here, Snyder's Affleck version of Batman, even though it was kind of short-lived, you probably have to say that's off the table too. Like you're looking for something that hasn't been done, And you could say Burton's I don't think James Gunn would go a Burton way, but like that also would be like, don't try to repeat what Michael Keaton did, right? So you kind of look at like, here are the things you can't do. What's left that can make profitable, compelling Batman? And there still should be plenty, but it's kind of indicating like they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So that's why I say like this to me feels like something that will drag to the point where WB will change hands as a company, and the ultimate arbiter of what we see for DCU Batman will not be necessarily James Gunn alone. It'll be the new owner, and maybe James Gunn is still part of that. Maybe he's not, but like that's what it's feeling is more likely to me. Now, they can still plant seeds, and I would highly encourage them to plant seeds in Clayface and Man of Tomorrow and start doing that because that'll help them, and it doesn't commit them to anything.
Because it builds excitement. And,
Exactly.
it urges, because if the fans are excited about those instances, then that is motivation to really get back to the table and start thinking about Batman. Because right now, you're not thinking about it. You're thinking the number one guarantee blockbuster in Batman 2.
Yeah. I'm just
That's
thinking
what you're
about
thinking
Colin
about.
Farrell calling the script a masterwork. That's all I'm thinking about. Sorry.
Yeah, right now, your Batman is whatever because, yes, a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what to do, but Batman 2 is taking precedence, and all you could do now is just sit and wait.
I think it'll be very interesting. Maybe it's a good segue to the Man of Tomorrow discussion quickly, but like, I think it's going to be very interesting in 2027 if Man of Tomorrow, it still fits in that category of okay, and Supergirl is just okay, and then Batman Part 2 is 1.2 billion, is people are like, holy mother, like he put something up there alongside The Dark Knight for all time. That it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Man of Tomorrow updates, Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of, again, put a couple of things in here. There's been this lot of smoke of like, they're casting for a highly prominent female role, right? So everyone thought Wonder Woman, and James Gunn came out and said, no, not Wonder Woman. And then what came out was a rumor that it's actually Maxima as sort of like a secondary villain who then I think in the comics becomes a good character down the road, becomes part of the Justice League. I guess why? Like, I don't know. Like, that was my reaction. Like, I waited this long for Brainiac in live action, and this kind of feels like a distraction because Maxima's like a alien queen. She's supposed to think that like Superman's her destined mate, and like comes to Earth to. I'm kind of like, why? Like,
it's James Gunn being James Gunn, putting in this scenario where Maxima and Lois Lane and they're just fighting over, you know what I'm saying? And it's just dumb conversation that leads nowhere. And he's like, I'm sorry, yo, I'm done with it. I'm so out of James Gunn stuff right now, yo. It's just I don't care. I don't care what he does, yo.
Unconfirmed, right? Unconfirmed, but they are casting for a highly prominent female role. And I was just like, if it turns out to be this, I'm just like, it just feels like it just feels like something unnecessary and something that has more the potential to take away from what Lars Eidinger is supposed to be doing as a long-awaited live-action Brainiac. So I read this and I was like, it's not making me excited. And while I'm still interested to see this movie right now, this also feels like I should feel like, hey, Superman, Lex, and Brainiac finally being, together in a movie. I should be really excited about that. That should be like this has maximum ceiling potential. And I kind of just feel like cautiously optimistic or nervous. I feel okay. That's what I mean. It feels like it's still in that range.
That's going to be the comic relief of it all right there for him. I don't think we spoke about this, Brian, but very quickly, I want to hear your thoughts on this notion that, based on what he said, that Man of Tomorrow, the character of Lex and him and Superman reflect some of his own personal experience and who he is and stuff like that. Did you read that, and what did you think of that?
So that didn't surprise me because after I listened to his podcast about Peacemaker, where he kind of talked about his own relationship with his father being kind of the inspiration for how he wrote Peacemaker's relationship with his father in the sort of current verse and alt verse. I wasn't surprised to see that. I don't think that's a problem. I mean, like a lot of writers and directors draw from their own life, like you think about like Steven Spielberg with like, I think like E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind. There's a lot of rumors of like how much personal stuff is in stuff like that. But as we've seen, it's all about tone. I think it's just like, did you find the tone of Superman to be the right tone that resonated with you? I think some people clearly did.
Yeah.
I think as I'm moving farther away from it, I think you're finding more people who kind of were like, meh. Like that's kind of like, that's what I mean. Like I find more of that reaction than like it made me really mad or it made me really super duper excited. So
I haven't seen it
yeah.
since. I haven't seen it since the theater.
Right?
So
Like I haven't pulled it up. And my kid doesn't ask for weirdly, like my kid really likes Fantastic Four, probably more so than I do. So she's probably rewatched that movie like 4 times since we've seen it in the theater. And she sees Superman like on the HBO app. And even though Krypto's in Superman, she's kind of like, meh, like I don't need to see it again.
Yeah.
It's not lasting. I'll tell you, it's not leaving it. And I'm not saying Fantastic Four is either, but I'm just saying Superman is not leaving an imprint in the
There's
way
a lot
that
more there's a lot more rewatchability in Fantastic Four.
There's a lot more rewatchability in Man of Steel, quite honestly. Like, I think that left more of an imprint than this Superman is. Yeah, I mean, I really do. Like, we still talk
That's why
about
I said
that
what I
movie.
said. That's why I surprised you last time without,
Yeah, you did. You put it on the list.
Yeah.
Put it on the list.
Supergirl and the Lobo spots. Is this Superman and Lobo now? Is the name going to change from Supergirl to Supergirl and Lobo? Lobo, what's going on? Why are we getting spots of Lobo? Who's pushing for this, Brian? What's going on?
I agree with your one-word take when you sent this to me. I think the studio is nervous about this movie, and they are giving away the goods to try and get people excited. And they feel like the Jason Momoa as Lobo card is something they could use to draw some additional box office. And they're playing it early because I think they need to. And I would agree with that. So if you want to use the word desperation, I think you're probably not far off.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to introduce Lobo with a shot similar to what they did there, they could have done that in the first Supergirl trailer. Or just wait to the Super Bowl. This was random.
But it's a lot. So if you notice, like, it wasn't just a TV spot. It was a TV spot. It was like a behind the scenes. He's out giving interviews now, talking more about the character, which clearly they would have encouraged him to do.
Yeah.
Because, like we see with the Marvel guys, when they're told not to talk, they're like, So he's out there like talking about it, which means the studio is totally fine with him talking about it.
Yeah.
Which means they want people to be like, hey, we've got Lobo. Hey, we've got more Lobo than you thought. Like the fact that they even dropped like, oh, Lobo has 2 step pieces. Why would you leak that?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to convince people that he's not
he
just
has fans,
cameo.
right? He has a big fan base. He's gonna be in Dune. He's done some good work. But
it's not
he's
automatic
been a part of
box office gold. I mean, let's be
he's
clear,
been in big
right?
movies. He's been in big movies.
But I mean, like
Minecraft.
Fast X was a pretty big box office disappointment, and he was the villain of that. I mean, like, so. But here's the thing, and I sent this to you, and like I remember when we started talking about it, and I had a pretty negative reaction to the trailer, and I basically said like, this thing will be lucky to make $300 million, and people reacted to that. I think Freddie told me I was crazy. I'm standing on that number, and I want to frame that number in 2 senses, which is number one, and I sent it to you. Folks, you got to look at the calendar. This movie has a hard road. Toy Story 5 comes out the week before. Minions 3 comes out the week after. Moana live action is the week after that. The Odyssey's the week after that. And Brand New Day is 2 weeks after that. You tell me of those movies, if you're power ranking those movies, how high could you realistically put Supergirl on that list? And a lot of it's the same audience.
Yeah, thinking about that, I've been thinking about it for some time because I had made the comments of Supergirl possibly outdoing Superman. And with that lineup and that limited amount of exposure without being drowned out by the bigger hits, the bigger names, the possible guarantees in box office. It's just a very difficult. And then you got to throw in our conversation that we had about female-led
You
superhero films.
absolutely do. My point is this movie has to be greater than great, in my opinion, to grab those dollars. And I'm just saying that I'm not saying the trailer looked awful. I'm just saying it looked familiar. It didn't look greater than great.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to be enough. And to your point, you know, that list of female-led IP, like true female-led IP, not co-led, but like led superhero action type. You know how many movies have made north of 500 million worldwide? That list is 2. Captain
Wow.
Marvel and Wonder Woman. End of list.
Wow.
And that's in an era we know where there was inflation for that stuff. Now, I
Yeah.
happen to think like Wonder Woman probably still would do it today. If it came out, I think
Yes.
it would still get to 500. Captain Marvel probably still gets to 500, but doesn't get to a bit close to $1 billion. Like, so my point is like, and you're seeing now the global box office isn't embracing this stuff. So if you just break down the numbers and say 300 million probably means Supergirl would do close to 200 million in the US and like a little more than 100 overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And the budget is like supposedly 100 to 125. You know what that is? Okay. That's my point. That actually is not a failed result. They probably would be break even to make a little bit of money on that, but it would fall very much in that category of like this DCU is kind of just doing okay.
Yeah.
I just don't see the path for this thing to be a massive, massive hit against that kind of competition. Like by all accounts, Toy Story 5 is amazing. The story sounds cool. Like the villain is an iPad trying to like ruin like analog world toys. It sounds great. And that supposedly it's like, but the built-in audience for that and Minions is huge. So if you got families who are going to take kids to see that, and then you got Moana live action, not sure how well that'll do, but obviously like Moana itself did great. And then you got Odyssey for a little more of the grown-ups, and then Spider-Man's at the end of the month. I mean, how many times are these families going to the movies?
Yeah.
Versus like they can just look at Supergirl and be like, I can stream that in a couple months. I'm sorry. I think it's in trouble.
Those reviews need to be stellar in order to even give it a shot, yo.
I agree. And that's why I think you're seeing a lot of Jason Momoa all of a sudden, right? Because they realize like we need to make this thing stand out a little bit. And Millie Alcock, as good as she may be, is not the kind of name yet that's going to do that.
Again, we're just two dudes speculating.
Again, I'm not trying to hate on the movie. I'm just looking at it. I'm looking at it and being like, this is a really hard road for something that's hard to begin with.
Yeah, yo.
And I'm saying you watch the studio's behavior. All of a sudden, a lot of Lobo pops up in January, and you're like, he's the big celebrity that's in the movie. And he looks great, and I'm sure he's gonna be great. He was born to do it. He even said, like, I am typecast for this role. He's like, I was literally born to do this. I'm more excited about this than I ever was for Aquaman. I don't doubt it. I don't doubt any of that.
Yeah.
I just don't know that it's enough to make this movie a must-watch for enough people.
And now he's talking about he'd like to get his own film. But it's like...
But he admits that's very TBD. He says there's no guaranteed future beyond Supergirl. He's very open, and I believe him. Like,
but yeah, do yourselves a favor and check out that video of us talking about female superhero-led films in either superhero action films. I mean, there's a bunch that has been done, and you just heard it. You know, only 2 films made it above 500 million.
With a true lead, right? So I'm not counting like Sarah Connor. I'm not counting Ray, right? Like that's what there's some ensemble and other stars and other things, right? They are the female lead of those movies, but I'm talking about with that character is the character. Wonder Woman, Captain Marvel, Furiosa, Ocean's 8. Like I'm talking about those type of projects. And it's like even when they're good and do pretty well, you know, 300 to 400 is kind of like where they usually top out, except for Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel.
Yeah. And in our final topic, we got Zack Snyder. He continues to post images of, I guess, the time when he was happiest. We want to sort of discuss what's really going on with Zack Snyder and he still is wanting to do something in the DCU or in DC. And again, I've said it before, if he does the same treatment that he did for 300 and does it for The Dark Knight Returns, I'm interested. I'm interested in seeing that. But given the track record, if Netflix they already know what they're getting with him. A huge failure, possibly. Rebel Moon was a fantastic failure. Do they want to go through that again? Even though Zack can definitely go like, look what I did with 300, look what I did with Watchmen. He can definitely, look, I adapted it almost to the T and it was successful. I can do the same with Dark Knight. That's his play. That's his only play. Any deviation from that? You got one more?
You think that's his? You think that's his? I don't think that's his only end game. Or are you saying that's the only play you would be open?
That's the
to
only pitch to get someone to convince someone of what can be done with that story, The Dark Knight Returns. I think that's his only pitch because he did the same thing with 300 and Watchmen. Anything else, Brian? I ain't trying to hear it. What do you think? You think he has a possibility?
I do actually. I think we're trying to get inside of what is he really trying to do with this? Because, he has been flooding social media with these images from the archives, being very visible on DC content. And the timing obviously is conspicuous as WB goes through the sale process, and that remains very uncertain. I don't think it's an accident, for sure. So then I think he's trying to keep the options open. And I would probably say that I don't know how firm conversations have been, but I would guarantee there's been outreach from his camp, probably to both prospective owners, about what could be possible.
Yeah.
And, I think your avenue is one of two that I would think he's interested in. Like, I think he would be very happy to do a live action Dark Knight Returns. I would guess it would be a multi-part adaptation. I don't think he would do it as a single film. I think he would do it as 2 or 3 parts. I think that's far more likely if Netflix wins than if Paramount wins, personally. But I do think that would be one of the conversations of that would be a dream come true. That's the project I always wanted to make. And whatever you think of Rebel Moon, that's Rebel Moon. Batman's a different thing. And he would be resting on, look, I mean, Man of Steel, I made $600+ million back in 2013. BVS, I made $800+ million back in 2016. And those are still profitable numbers. Are they the numbers that maybe were hoped for at the time? No. But, those are still profitable numbers. I can get people out to see these characters. I do think that's one of the pitches. I do think he's trying to leave open the possibility that he could somehow be resurrected as the overseer of something DC or be part of some new DC leadership hierarchy. I don't know that it would be a straight resumption of what he was doing before. I'm less convinced that it's that, only because I feel like a lot of the stars have moved on. Like you think about Jason Momoa, right? Like Jason Momoa clearly wants to be Lobo. Like he doesn't want to go back to being Zack's Aquaman, right? Ben Affleck doesn't really want to be Batman. It's like, so I think if he were put in a position of influence for DC, it would be more like, okay, let's take the thematics that you had, but maybe we would have to reboot or reset that a bit. But I do think he's maintaining some flicker of hope that, like, depending on who wins this, he would be a candidate to potentially be in the room for DC again. I now, would I say if I'm laying odds on that, it's still a long shot. Like, it's still firmly plus odds. But I don't think you can say it's 0. I think there was a point in time where we could have said this was 0. I no longer think you can say it's zero. And he senses and probably knows it's not zero, which is why he continues to feed this out. And I'll be interested to see if the content that he puts out starts to take more and more the form of like trial balloons. Like if he starts putting out stuff which is almost like, well, what if what do people react to about this? If I start putting out Deathstroke stuff or I start putting out Martian Manhunt, like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, why is he like putting out stuff about stuff he never did? Then I'll be like, oh, maybe he's starting to try to fish for what audiences might want to see in case he does get a shot at this. But I think he is trying to position himself not out of nowhere as like an option, depending on how this sale goes.
I still think there is. I would say Zach is, for the most part, that people that know him and that worked with him enjoy working with him, and he is who he is, and the people that have worked with him have great relationship with him. So I'm pretty sure he has a lot of relationships at Netflix that are, despite the disastrous movie of Rebel Moon and what he was trying to do there. I'm pretty sure there's no hard feelings, right?
Well, I mean, I think isn't it similar to the Russo brothers away from the MCU?
True.
Right?
True.
If you're making the case for, you would say like Zack Snyder, when he's working with Frank Miller material, is a different director and storyteller than when he's on his own.
Yeah.
And that would be the upside that you would convince yourself of.
But we'll see. We'll see.
It's crazy that we can even talk about it. But like, I do think at this point, I think it's unfair to say that it's a 0% chance we see him direct a DC film again. I think there was a point where I would have said 0. Now I would say it's not 0. It's low, but it's not 0.
Yeah. But we'll see, man. There's still a long way to go with DC and where it ends up in the hands of either Netflix or Paramount. But obviously, we know the likelihood of that happening and moving to Netflix is high.
They're still the odds-on favorite. I mean, they're still. I would say, like, if you're laying odds for who wins at this point, just quick update: Netflix would be minus odds to win. They'd be the favorite.
Yes. And then when those things happen, I'm pretty sure that discussions will happen as to how they handle it. And Zack Snyder is making himself available to when that day comes. But I, for one, would you want to see Zack Snyder be a Parliament member or lead or head, or him not doing the films? How would you want? Because clearly Zack Snyder would just want to, if he's going to reset it, I don't know how he would reset it. In terms of his, I don't know what his way would be. We already saw a glimpse.
I don't think you can get from what James Gunn has given you visually, color palette wise, to how Zack likes to direct. Like that, I've also considered the possibility of, like, if you're the studio, do you try to preserve, right, Corrin Sweat and Holt and Brosnahan? You try to preserve those building blocks, but then you if you took Gunn and Safran off and you put someone else in charge, but you kind of try to keep the universe moving forward, I think it's tough to do that aesthetic and then have Zack Snyder be the guy doing that, right? That doesn't really fit. So it's easier to do a Dark Knight Returns one-off with him for sure.
Yes. I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
Asking me, in a dream world, if you set up a true parliament of contrast and viewpoints to try to get the best possible DCU out, I don't have a problem with Zack being one of the people in that room. I have an issue if he's given the sole godlike control over the entire thing. But if you're like, hey, I want this guy's perspective, absolutely. I think one of the things I defend most about what he's done in the DC universe is actually from a visual standpoint. I think there's some really interesting stuff in Man of Steel. Like, if you notice, I don't think there's a single slow-mo shot in Man of Steel, which for a guy who does nothing but slow-mo in 300 Watchmen. I think it's one of the most interesting decisions he ever made. Was like he just like, I want to shoot this as what it would look like to regular people if these dudes were fighting in front of you. That is actually a really original idea. And so like I
Yes.
want ideas like that in the room.
Yes. Like he takes it to a point where the realism and what it would likely be. Like if Superman is fighting, let's say, Darkseid on Earth, what would that punch sound like? It wouldn't sound regular. You know? So there's these things that Zach is very good at visualizing in terms of how would this look like if this was
Yeah.
actually happening. And so I appreciate, or we appreciate, and a lot of people appreciate his perspective. But he can't be the guy in charge. He can't be a guy in charge. We could certainly have a conversation as to what we can adapt, what we think is a good idea. But in terms of storytelling, there has to be conversation, perhaps even some compromise. But
I think he and James Gunn are more similar than people realize in some respects, because I think they both suffer from the curse of too many ideas sometimes. They just
too many minds.
they just realize it in a different way, right? A different tone. But I think, if you look at Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's like there's just so many threads he's trying to get in there. And it's actually kind of an entertaining watch when you take the time to watch it. But it's like there's a reason why movies are not meant to be 6 hours, right? And it's like, 4 or 5 hours. And it's like he's the kind of guy where it's like, I want to go this way, I want to go that way, I want to go. It's like, dude, we gotta focus here on these key things. And so but you see the same thing we're talking about with James Gunn, with like how many characters he threw at you and like how many things he wants to get into this one movie. And it's like some of it is you appreciate the passion and the imagination, but you're like, hey, can I just get Superman and Lex and Superman and Lois and Superman and Brainiac? Can we just do that for a couple hours? Is that all right? So.
But we'll see what happens with DC when that day finally comes of here are the new owners, and then slowly trickles down to the headlines of who's in charge, what are they thinking about doing with DC, because DC is a big thing, and especially, it just is. It just
can't
is.
be just okay. That's what I'm saying. It has to someday break out, right? It's like it has to be more than okay.
It has to get us to the excitement level that we were with MCU, when it first started. When it first started, there was excitement. There was a buzz.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is the, and look, I know that it's not for lack of effort. I know that. But I'm saying at some point you look at the results and it's no different than a sports team. It's like you don't play football to go 10-7 every year and make the wild card game. You play to win the Super Bowl. And at some point, if the people in charge can't get you to the Super Bowl, you make changes. And that's just how it is. So right now it's like, have we given up? No, I haven't. But I'm just pointing out, so far we're living in 10-7. That's kind of like where I feel like we are.
I'm like the Miami Heat crowd that left like a few seconds, like 20, 30 seconds before they came back with what's his guy's name? Hit a three, Ray Allen.
Oh, Ray Allen at Game 6 of the finals.
Yeah,
they walked out before that.
Yes, and people started to come back. The people running back, that's gonna be me when it's dope. When it's dope, that'll be me coming back to see what y'all did and what y'all doing. But right now, except for Matt Reeves stuff, that one I can't wait for. But yeah, that's been our DC Roundup. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think of each of these topics we discussed. Batman Brave and the Bold, that new writer, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm sure everybody's feeling the same way. Like, they're not excited. There's not excitement here. There's not excitement here. Gunn comments about timing with Batman 2 and his Batman is uncertainty. It's not about timing. The Man of Tomorrow updates. Forgot what we talked about.
Maxima, just sort of, if that's true.
See how easily we forget? You see how easily we forget Maxima? But this is something that he wants to do. This is the problem, yo. This is the problem. He wants to do these things. We get in this thing, Mr. Miracle, which I'm interested in seeing what this is all about because it opens the door to another world that's supposed to be a part of what he's doing. But we'll see. So there's some interest there, but I don't know. Supergirl is setting in. The anxiety of thinking that something like this would be as successful as Superman and keep the ball rolling. But yet we see little acts of, I don't want to say desperation.
Nerves. I would say it's nerves.
Yes.
Anxiety and nerves is the right word. Yeah.
Now we see Lobo spots now. And when is the movie coming out? March?
No, June 26th, like I said.
June 26th.
Right
they couldn't wait for
man.
the Super Bowl, yo. They couldn't wait for the Super Bowl. They did it on this was Tuesday, right? Usually they do stuff like this on Tuesdays. But there was no announcement. It was like surprise, surprise! Yo, we already had it visualized in our head what Lobo's gonna look like with Jason Momoa, yo. I'm interested in seeing when this movie comes out, was it too much Jason Momoa and not Lobo?
Well, I think, my prediction is by the time you go to the theater, you will have seen 80 to 90% of what his role in the movie is already.
And what's really going on with Zack Snyder? Let us know in the comment section below what you think he will be a good addition to perhaps what this new parliament, I'm going to call it a parliament for now, but I don't know what, this new group of individuals in charge of DC.
Or theorizing if that ever comes to pass.
Yeah.
To be clear, that's speculation.
Will he be part of that group? Will he be the head of that group? And what role would, I'm pretty sure there's those that want Zack Snyder to take over the whole thing and give us his, like, yo, these dudes, that's over with, my friends. That's over with. That's done. That's done. Yeah, but let's see what happens. Let us know in the comment section below what you guys think. If you haven't heard it anywhere else, you heard it here first on the Nerd Gym Report, and we'll see you next time.